Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All right, happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman live, hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use, no doubt continues now. This is the broadcast for March 19th in the year of our Lord 2025. This is Hour 2 at 2. James Edwards with me, thepoliticalcesspool.org. I'm telling you right now, we the people are being punked. We don't control the narrative. We wish we did. We're making tremendous strides. That's factual. But we're not even close to there yet because of the money. Because the government funds the media that's our enemy. And they've done so for decades. And they've helped the mainstream press grow by their algorithms at Google. Now Rumble kind of hinting that they're going to be involved in that as well. They're pitching this as great news for the new media. But I submit to you that it'll be the old media, rebranded as the new media, that will continue to be the gatekeepers if we allow it to happen. And that's the warning call from me, yours truly. Remember who told you that first, because I'm telling you that will be the case if we allow this to happen. Here's the proof. The Associated Press, the AP, they're the, quote, premier news organization. They've been funded by government, backed by government, given gatekeeping control for literally decades. The AP forced to, quote, delete article after getting caught pushing a lie about Tulsi Gabbard. Yeah, the westernjournal.com, that's a new media great organization doing a phenomenal job. But the Associated Press, the AP, literally was forced to retract a story claiming that U.S. National Intelligence Director Tulsi Gabbard referred to President Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin as good friends. Turned out to be bogus, James.
Oh, what would have been a bad thing if that was true? I mean, are you not supposed to be friends with other heads of state? As certainly
no,
the
you
heads
should
of
be.
Superpowers.
You should be.
Well, I saw that. I saw that article and just said, "Okay, good. That's good news." I didn't know it was not
but it
real.
Isn't good news because it's a lie. She didn't say that.
I didn't know that.
Now let me tell you what she did say. They published a correction after they had to delete the article.
Well, you know how these corrections work.
Clarifying that Tulsi Gabbard was actually referring to Donald Trump's friendship with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Right? So They basically said it was about somebody that it wasn't about. Now they were like, oh my gosh, that was an error on our part. But they've been caught multiple times retracting stories recently, James. Their credibility's in crisis mode. But do you believe the AP's going away anytime soon?
It's not going away, but it's definitely. I mean, I still got to say, Sam, it's not. Listen, this whole thing is
90% of stories you read, James, goes through that gatekeeping organization in some way or another.
Yeah, but I just the 22, not of these hundreds of independent folks that are doing this, that are just sort of like tidal waving the old media landscape. I mean, 2025 media is not like it was, even when I was growing up, much less at the advent of the television age. I mean, where you had the three broadcast networks, the old three broadcast networks, and then a couple of newspapers like the New York Times and the Washington Post. So this, there is a right-wing bubble that collectively and cumulatively has supplanted, by and large, the left wing in terms of, at least, if it's not controlling the narrative full stop, it is at least, I mean, you are having ideas get out there in major ways that were relegated to just shows and networks like ours even a few years ago. Now it's just everywhere. I mean, you can't go online, you can't go on social media, you can't. I mean, if you're looking at the big people that are in this audit that Media Matters did, you're talking Joe Rogan,
what's the
Tucker
top
Carlson, Candace
news
Owens.
organization you pull news from, James? Who do you go to first or the most?
Well, you'd probably. I'm an outlier for sure. I mean, mine would be this network, American.
Who do you go to first and the most.
Websites that are.
No, you
for
name
me
one.
personally, website American Renaissance, Occidental Descent, websites that are run by friends of mine who do aggregate coverage.
Excellent.
So, for instance,
now tell me their top story.
All right, if you go to,
I don't care which one you pick. I'm not controlling any of this.
All right. Well, this is just
This is
yesterday's
a real
news.
live test on the radio. James has no idea
here
I'm
we go.
asking these questions. This is really live
do not.
response. Yep. Okay, here we go.
It is the news yesterday from American Renaissance. The stories they had you provided links to. Trump officials test limits of court's power to constrain their actions.
All right. Where does that story come from?
Yeah, I see your point now. So they're all
Hold on.
pulling. Of course,
Where does that story come from?
Here's where they pulled from yesterday.
Yeah.
For 8 stories, here were the people they pulled from: Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, Blaze, Washington Free Beacon, Politico, New York Post.
All those guys
Spectator.
getting funded by your government, buddy.
And that
With rare
actually came out
exception.
in this U.S.
And
aid.
even if they take their own, even if they take their own slant on the story, which by the way, I pull news from the mainstream press a ton too, through trusted groups. Like I think the Blaze does a great job in many ways. I think a lot of those people that you mentioned do a great job. But here's the point: we all get our narrative from the mainstream core, 90% of which runs through the Associated Press, my friend.
Well, because we don't have a news department, we're commentators, okay? So we're not reporters in the way where we go out and we find the stories. What we do as commentators is, yes, we will take stories that are reported on by, I guess you could say, these legacy outlets, but then offer our own treatment to it and our own analysis of it and commentary.
Which is good, but at the end of the day, if they're the ones that generate the core, your slant's better than their slant. I agree, but they still control the core, James.
All right, so this is actually, I'd say actually as if I'm surprised, but this is an interesting thought experiment. So I see what you're saying. So we are responding and offering our own take on the news that they are providing.
Generate. In other words, they set the narrative, and you argue with the narrative, but you're still arguing with their core or what they brought forth.
Well, it's 2 takes on the same story. Now, obviously, if we could pick whatever news item we'd want to cover, let's just say immigration, for instance. So, I mean, we're going to be talking about the same things that they're talking about, but obviously in very different ways. But let me ask you this. This would be the follow-up question to that is, if you weren't getting your news, what news would you, let's just say you are the program director at CNN, or you are the editor-in-chief of the New York Times. What articles would you want to be covering that are not covered at all? Like if they're covering immigration, yes, it's from a liberal perspective, but we're covering that too. What things that are not covered in the news at all would you be covering?
Well, the first one is we the people have been punked. Yeah, that's a story no one's telling you but Sam Bushman, right? Do you know anybody else saying that?
Well, maybe not in those so many words, but I think a lot of people know they've been lied to by the media and the government.
All right, but is it okay? What about the who controls the narrative discussion? I mean, there's a lot of discussion about that, but everybody on the conservative side thinks they control the narrative now. They think the new media is taking center stage. They think they're rolling. They think, Rumble and everybody else is going to be their friend. It's going to be all good. I mean, the mainstream press / new media, they're all celebrating right now.
Well, I think you got to ask yourself the question, where are we at on this sliding scale? And on one end of the spectrum is we're winning, and on the other side is we've won. And I think it's certainly going to be closer to we are beginning to win.
On the last side of that is we're losing at the other end, right?
Well, I don't know about that, because at least in this context, there is just no doubt that more controversial and what would have been previously declared to be absolutely toxic subject matter is getting out there to people like, when you're talking Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, people with tens of millions of viewers.
Yeah.
And it's getting out there. That is one thing that I can point at and say we're better off now because of that than we were.
And I think to some degree we are, but here's the clincher. Here's the question. We get out all this awesome information that was never there before. Let's just take, for example, Doge. Okay? The mainstream press doesn't know what to do with Doge, we're told. They're melting down about Doge, we're told. Elon Musk just revealed, James, that there's, quote, 14 magic money computers that send money out of nothing. And where did Elon Musk say this? On Ted Cruz's talk show. WND.com with the piece, so new media, WorldNet Daily is where I got it. But it's Ted Cruz and it's Elon Musk reporting it. Elon Musk basically says, hey, they got 14. He calls them magic money computers. I call them magic machines, money machines. Okay, and he's literally documented that these things create money out of thin air. Okay, now that's an incredible revelation that the mainstream press of yesteryear would not tell you. I agree 1,000%.
I got something good for you.
But when we get back, I'll tell you the zinger. And then you can tell me what you think. Actually, let's skip the break. Let's just do it right now. Okay, so here's my take. That's awesome. But until somebody gets arrested and thrown in prison, it doesn't mean a dang. So there's magic computers. Now who's in control of them? Donald instead of Joe? Fine. Oh, we're going to stop the magic computers. We're going to turn them off. So the next administration can turn them back on? Or, okay, what is the end game for all this incredible reporting? And the answer is nothing. No one's been arrested. Congress hasn't codified any actions from Trump. We're nowhere, buddy. Nowhere.
All right, let me ask you this. So this is going back, and when it's cooking, Sam. I'm thinking about the question you brought up, that, and this is, as I said, a very interesting thought exercise. So we're talking again about, and I want to be clear here too, and we will correct any meaningful error, even so slight. I want to be exactly accurate in everything we say, even down to the smallest detail. I was slightly off. I had seen something on social media that this was an audit of 400 plus new media outlets. The exact number was 320. So 320, not 400 plus. So,
but we don't even know who they are.
Well, I mean, we know some of them. we know a representative sampling of them.
A couple that they mentioned in their article.
But this gets back to what you were saying, though, is that, okay, so, in terms of who controls the narrative, this is interesting, and I would love your take on this, because I don't even know how I would flesh this out in terms of, and this goes back to the first hour discussion, where do you and I, as commentators with 50 years of combined experience on radio, where do we stand in this thing vis-a-vis the anointed ones in conservative or right-of-center media? And you were saying before that even we are getting our stories from these legacy outlets and just offering our own treatments to it, but they're still setting the narrative, and that led to the question of, well, what would you be covering
and that's
otherwise?
Good that we're doing it, by the way. It's better than it not being done at all. Don't misunderstand me. Right?
But this is one thing, though. So again, we are in a way responding to these things. Now, maybe we're just using these particular stories as platform, launching points into a topic we would otherwise be covering, like immigration or foreign policy. All right, so but it is fair to say, so we got this story from the Washington Post. So the Washington Post is still setting the narrative, or at least we're responding to their standing in the media. But how about this? Well, let me just play this clip very first to set this up. This is 20 seconds, and this was about 2 weeks before Rush Limbaugh died. And somebody sent this. I didn't listen to it, but somebody who knew my program listened to it. And this is just a 20-second clip from Rush Limbaugh.
It always amazes me that every Democrat has some tie-in to Martin Luther King, or Bobby Kennedy, or JFK, or Sirhan. You take your pick. They have a tie-in to John Lewis. They may have a tie-in to Bull Connor. They may have a tie-in to James Edwards. All
right, so there is Rush Limbaugh 2 weeks before he died, and this brings up the question. So of all of these people who are your new media right-wing heavyweights, Charlie Kirk, Jordan Peterson, Matt Walsh, I mean, I could go on. The people that are being mentioned in this Media Matters article, how many of them are getting
whatever? Yep.
How many of them? Yeah, Joe Rogan. There's a lot. How many of them are getting their news from us and offering their response to it and sort of taking our ideas and making them their own? That is a bigger question. So even though we will never get the credit
for that.
It's a fair,
honest, open question, right? Because I've maintained that for a long time, that they steal our stories, and I don't care if I get credit for the story or not. Take the new media example to make the point. I've been the new media takes center stage guy longer than anybody else can even recognize.
Mostly, you've been giving new media take center stage speeches since before a lot of these people got into media to start with, and now they've got all
I
these
don't
things.
get any credit for this new media thing. Not that I need credit, except for, hey, is that ratings or what?
So here, this is both ends of the thing. So
yeah, good
yes,
point.
In some
point.
cases, we are responding to, what the liberal media is saying to use their stories as launch pads for our commentary. But then I am absolutely certain. I mean, there's Rush Limbaugh just mentioning and passing us. Right before he died. So, I mean, there was never a doubt that they were listening, and now there are just so many that have, I don't want to say co-opted. I mean, I believe people can hear the truth and come to recognize it and then take it and make it their own. But, we didn't have any intellectual copyright to some of our ideas, but I'm just saying a lot of the conservative media now is sounding more and more and more like us, and it's just, again, an example of they could be getting their news from us, and in many cases we know that they have, and then using that to fuel their rise to prominence in ways that we have not been able to do because
that's
they are
great
obviously.
Point. And I think that's worthy of the middle. But I look at this Elon Musk thing, and he literally tells a senator, hey, man, they're making money out of thin air with these magic money machines. There's 14 of them. Then Elon Musk goes further and says this. Listen, Elon Musk says the Democrats received $200 billion in tax money to buy support in elections. The goal is to have so many illegals added to the rolls that you can't vote your way out of it. Bob Unruh over at WND.com. So now we're saying, hey, they make money out of thin air with these magic money machines, and they've used $200 billion in elections. That doesn't even count the $400 million that Mark Zuckerberg put in or anything else. But the narrative is that election fraud is bogus, never happened. Anybody who says so is crazy. Even though now Elon Musk over at Doge is talking to a senator, literally telling you that they stole $200 billion to buy their own elections. Who controls the narrative, James?
Who is the magic money machine? Is that what we're calling the Department of the Treasury now?
I don't know. Each of these departments have their own. Hold on. Each of these departments have their own money machine that just generates money out of thin air and sends it out to whoever they want to.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Okay, well, there you go. So who's going to prison? If we control the narrative, we are all saying these people belong in prison, aren't we?
Well, that it reminds me of a line that Harvey Keitel says in National Treasure. Somebody's got to go to prison, Ben.
Yeah, but nobody's going to prison. In fact, they're not even close to putting anybody in prison. They're not even talking about putting anybody in prison. Are they?
Not enough people in government go to prison. I think the last one that went to prison was Steve Stockman, right?
Oh, yeah. So you mean our guys are still going to prison, and the guys that have the magic money machines and the guys that spent $200 billion on the elections that were never, there was no fraud, anybody who says so is a conspiracy nut, those guys are fine. Is that what we're saying? And we control the narrative, right? Buddy, you've been punked.
All right, hold on. I mean, controlling the narrative is sort of like an absolute. Certainly, the narrative is shifting, and
who's even on the docket to go to prison on their side? Anybody?
Let's say that again. Who goes to prison?
Who's on the docket, or who's even being considered or discussed going to prison? Anybody? Hunter?
Well, I mean, they all got preemptive.
Free, baby.
Well, they all got preemptive. They all got preemptive auto pen pardons. I think like everybody in government got a pardon before Trump came, which is, again, that we were talking about that in the first hour. I mean, Trump has said flat out, I mean, what's his line here, that these auto pen preemptive pardons are void. And he says right here, and this is, again, here I go, NBC News, Sam, there you have it. But it said that, well, you almost have to quote them because they're the only ones that have access to the press room to get these quotes.
Wait, stop. Why are they the only ones that have access to the press room?
Well, you have talked about that.
Hold on, if we control the narrative, if we're the main guy, if we're the one, if this, quote, whacked out news organization that did this research says we're the ones on top now, how come we don't have access to the press room?
Yeah, well, it's a nuanced thing. I mean, controlling the narrative, that's an overstatement. To say that we are changing the narrative and able to talk about things that were shut out years ago, that is the truth.
I've been talking about them from the start. I cut my teeth on Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton Arkancides and drug trafficking in Arkansas. That's where I cut my teeth.
But this is NBC News has the quote here that the pardons that Sleepy Joe Biden gave to the I do like Donald Trump's flair for showmanship. This is the president speaking. The pardons that Sleepy Joe Biden gave to the unselect committee of political thugs and many others are hereby declared void, vacant, and of no further force or effect. And that's in, of course, all capitals, as he is wont to do.
Declared by who?
Because of the fact that they were done by autopen. That's what Donald Trump said. So in this,
and I agree with him. But unless somebody goes to prison, the pardons are in place.
Well, here's a big problem you've got, Sam. Here is a massive problem you've got.
Yeah,
is that, let me pull this up in my notes here. So you already have, and tomorrow is. It seems like it's been an eternity, really, because so much has happened. Tomorrow is March 20th. That is 2 months to the day of the inauguration. You're talking about all the things that have happened in the last 2 months. I mean, there's no way we could even recap it. But you've got now 27 and counting of these executive orders that have been blocked by federal judges. So let's just say Trump was serious about going and doing some of these things, and a lot of the things I think he is serious about. But you've got, 27 blocked by federal judges now. And so, who elected a federal judge to control our immigration policy? I mean, you had this thing, you've got this woman.
Nobody, but unless you impeach the judge, he's going to continue doing his stuff, buddy.
Well, but you just had the Supreme Court in the news break. I heard it in the top of the hour news break. The Supreme Court said that, a judge's decision that you disagree with isn't cause for impeachment. Well,
now,
what the hell
that,
is?
By the way, who said that?
That was the Supreme Court, John Roberts.
All right, and who put John Roberts in place?
Okay, all right, well, round and round we go.
Yeah. Oh, man, it doesn't work, does it? See, we're being punked, folks, at every level. Now, what's happened, really, honestly, since Joe Biden left? Let's ask that question. We say it's so much to count, but let's just take the border, for instance. Joe Biden brought in anywhere from 10 to 20 million people, right?
Yeah,
do you think that number's general? I mean, I don't even know. We can't know how many.
Could
really,
be more,
right?
Yeah,
but we say 10, 20, whatever. How many has Donald got rid of?
I mean, some. Yeah, I mean, you certainly haven't seen Operation Wetback 2 taking place, but I mean, some. I do believe that they've pinched off a lot of the crossings, but here again, this is what we're talking about. All right, so you've got a judge. Here's one example. Now, this is, and I'll get back to immigration in about 30 seconds. But so this is Stephen Miller, who I do think is doing a good job. He writes on his Twitter account, district court judges have now decided that they are in command of the armed forces. Is there no end to this madness? So you have this, you've never heard of her. Nobody's ever heard of her. U.S. District Judge Anna Reyes. Now, she was a Biden appointee, and she's very proud of herself right now. She's smiling in front of the press. She just ruled that the Pentagon can enforce Trump's order banning so-called transgender people from serving in the military. So here is this unelected judge that nobody voted for, who is setting national policy and can circumvent what the actual president, who did get elected, can do. And then going back to immigration, you had a freaking court judge say he can't deport members of violent terrorist gangs.
That's right.
Now, he defied that order, and they went ahead and sent him anyway. He's going to have to defy a lot more. I mean, there's going to have to be, if he's real at all, and there's still calls for debate about that, but if he's real at all, he has to absolutely disregard.
I don't disagree with that one bit, but here's
orders.
the deal. I mean, Trump can defy the judge, and the judge can defy Trump, and what's going to go on until there's accountability now. So here's the question. How many people has Trump deported? How many people have Tom Homan and Trump deported? Any idea?
No.
Where would you go for that answer, James?
You'd have to go to the gatekeepers, I guess. Now,
there you go.
You probably have people like Charlie Kirk. Honestly, this is the truth. You probably have people like Charlie Kirk who can get a number from Tom Homan.
Can you trust Charlie?
Who can you trust? I don't trust anybody except for the people I know personally. I trust you. I trust some of my regular guests. I trust my family. I don't know.
Do you think Trump's even close to 500,000?
That's a good question. I mean, I would say certainly tens of thousands.
You think? Maybe you think he's deported tens of thousands? 100,000 maybe?
Well, are we talking about self-deportations? I mean, I think a lot of these people are leaving, but I don't know.
Yeah, and some celebrities are self-deporting. That's good.
Not enough. Not enough.
Hey, all right, I've got another story that's very interesting about a fixer. Tied to Nancy Pelosi.
All right.
Tied to January the 6th. The only one that's got it is The Blaze. We'll tell you about it in seconds.
How would you like to help this program reach more people and earn silver at the same time? Call or text 801-669-2211 for complete details.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. Some judges continue throwing roadblocks in the way of Trump administration efforts to trim the size as well as the cost of the federal government. Now it's a Maryland federal judge temporarily blocking DOJ from dismantling USAID. Presidents Trump and Putin have a deal on the Russia-Ukraine war, but technically it is not a ceasefire.
During their lengthy phone call, the two leaders agreed to an immediate pause in strikes against energy infrastructure. But Putin stopped short of backing a broader 30-day stoppage. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Zelensky said he's open to any proposals that lead to a sustainable and just peace. But he stressed the need for full transparency in discussions.
And that's White House correspondent Greg Clugston. More Israeli airstrikes on Hamas targets in Gaza overnight. The Israeli military says it took out a terrorist rocket launching base in northern Gaza. Some boats off the coast hit as well. Some Israelis object to the renewed military campaign, saying that it puts the remaining hostages in Gaza in even greater danger. Amid questions about who is behind it, who's funding what could be an organized campaign, Tesla dealerships in various places continue to be targeted by vandals. The FBI's Spencer Evans in Las Vegas telling KTNV.
And specifically to those who might think that something like this is justifiable or potentially even admirable, we want to let you know it's a federal crime. We will come after you, we will find you, and prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. I encourage anyone that's considering something like this to seriously reconsider.
President Trump making good on another campaign pledge. Unredacted files related to the 1963 assassination of President Kennedy have now been released. Watching Wall Street this morning, stocks are higher. The Dow is up 219 points. The Nasdaq ahead 112. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Just hearing the word IRS can make people break out in a cold sweat. No one wants to deal with the IRS, and now you don't have to. The good news is Legal Tax Defense has been successfully negotiating with the IRS for more than 15 years. It doesn't matter how much you owe, whether it's $5,000 or $5 million. You deserve the best in the business on your side, and that is Legal Tax Defense. Even if you're working with someone else and just want a second opinion, there is no cost or obligation to call. They can prevent levies, liens, wage garnishments, even file back tax returns. And the best news about Legal Tax Defense is they won't take your case unless they know they will reduce or eliminate your tax debt. Call Legal Tax Defense right now for a free, no-risk consultation. 800-292-7875. 800-292-7875. You have nothing to lose but everything to gain. 800-292-7875.
Cybercrime is exploding. Take Sarah from Sweet Delights, whose world crumbled after having to close with not being able to bounce back. Small businesses are prime targets, but the right strategies can keep yours safe. Jay Hill, CEO of Network Providers, has co-authored The Cyber Playbook Simplifies Cybersecurity for Business Owners with Strategies to avoid costly breaches and fines. Build a strong cyber attack response. Secure your business with key protections. Cyber threats aren't slowing down, but you can stay ahead. Protect your business. Ensure its security for tomorrow. Get the Cyber Playbook today at networkprovidersinc.com/cyber-playbook or call 385-446-5500 now.
Have you ever had great honey? No, I mean really good, all-natural, raw honey? Well, now you can, thanks to localhoneyman.com. We can ship out our locally made honey all across the U.S. So don't worry, you won't miss out. Plus, Local Honeyman has so many different flavors, like Utah Wildflower, High Desert Delight, Happy Valley, and Blackberry, just to name a few. So purchase your delicious raw honey today at localhoneyman.com.
Do you treasure your liberty? Well, at lovingliberty.net, we most certainly do. And we want to help protect your liberty too. Become part of the family. Everyone knows that the core of any society is the family. Therefore, the government should foster and protect the integrity of its family, we the people. Won't you join us as a Loving Liberty sponsor to help us promote the principles in the 5,000-year leap? Let's restore the miracle that changed the world at lovingliberty.net.
Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All right, I get all kinds of emails from Mike Johnson and Donald Trump Jr. and everybody else and their dog, but they're not really personal. I've just been forced onto some list whether I want to be or not. The latest one from Donald Trump Jr. just came in on the break, ladies and gentlemen. Donald Trump Jr., waiting to hear from you. Not. Okay, here's what the email says. James?
All right, so, I mean, anybody who's ever given any money to anybody in the Republican Party gets inundated with emails like this every day, and I mean dozens of them.
But is that
the more
genuine?
you give,
is that legitimate?
No, it's not. I mean, so it says it's from Donald Trump Jr., but he has an odd email address.
Is that the truth?
It's the truth that you'll get inundated with fundraising requests if you give them any money.
That's from Donald Trump Jr., and he's talking to Sam Bushman. He says, Donald Trump Jr. says on this thing, hey, man, I'm waiting to hear from you, Sam. Right?
Yep, that's what it says, and it even says
is
from
it true?
Donald. No, it's not true at all.
Okay.
Donald Trump Jr. probably doesn't even know this email was
So we're going to start out
sent.
with fake news from Donald Trump Jr. to Sam Bushman. Okay? And here's what he says.
And it says from Donald Trump Jr., although his email address is a little weird. It's info@pledgeallegianceusa.com. So this is like some third-party fundraising initiative for Elise Stefanik, the congresswoman out of New York.
Probably tied to Kim What's-Her-Face, Guilfoyle, and Gavin Newsom, maybe. You know what I mean? You don't even know. But go ahead.
Yeah, so these are gimmicky, but people think that they're legit, and they give. It says... my father has already issued hundreds of executive orders to get America back on track, from securing our border to ending woke DEI programs in the federal government to resuming drilling to lower energy costs. He's ending Biden's insanity and putting the American people first.
And I will defend and say I think Trump's doing his best in that. I think Congress is undermining the president. But yes, and the court,
a lot of that,
the judges are undermining the president. Yes.
Whoever wrote this email, who was certainly not Donald Trump Jr., they're right about that. But anyway, it goes on. This is just the beginning of restoring America's greatness. There's still a lot more we can accomplish during this first 100 days in office. But like I said, the America First movement is built on listening to the grassroots American who make this country great. You, Sam, were the real power behind our historic victory in November, and we'll never forget it, which is why, I'm going to let you take this survey, and if you kick in a few bucks, we'll let you finish it.
So they want me to kick in a couple of bucks and take a survey. However, they said that I was part of the new media and that I could sign up and they'd get back to me. They haven't got back to me yet. They're too busy writing this letter, begging me for money.
Yeah.
Well, they want me to take a survey. Now, what do they want me to take a survey about, James?
Okay, so they want your. This is it. They want this survey because they want to know how you think they should run the administration. So they want you to share your ideas on what you think should be next on Trump's agenda.
Wait a minute. I've been sharing my ideas for 2 hours and 3 hours a day for literally 30 years, ladies and gentlemen.
Now, you're part of the team here now because you got this email from Donald Trump Jr., and if you take this survey, they're going to take that right to Trump, and he's going to consider it, and you're part of sort of the inner circle. But don't forget to, you're going to have to donate before you push send on that survey or it won't go through. But, I mean, again, this is a third-party fundraising company.
But here's the deal, though. Why not arrest those
congresswoman
people? Hold on. If they're pretending that they're Donald Trump Jr., and they're not, is it okay with Donald that they're doing that?
Yeah, you wonder if he even knows. I mean, this happens all the time.
I know, but people need to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law for that. If I claim that I'm so-and-so, am I allowed to do that? Am I allowed just to pretend I'm Donald Trump Jr.? Because if so, then I need to start sending out all my own emails under all these people's names. Hey, I'm Sam. I'm Elon Musk, and you need to donate to me because I'm taking on the world with Doge, baby. And I'm okay. Is this acceptable and is this allowed to continue? Either they know about it or they don't, or they. How are we going to deal with this?
It's gray area stuff for sure. It does make me feel a little icky, honestly.
Well, who's on the bottom line with this thing? Who does it say is the bottom line? At the end of the email, it says who it is, right?
Oh yeah, it is. The actual source of this email was Team Elise, a joint fundraising committee authorized and composed of Elise for Congress. So this is Elise Stefanik's PAC.
Okay, so does Elise Stefanik's PAC, this isn't a vague thing where you can't know who it is like Donald Trump Jr. has been swatted. Okay? This is Elise, this lady that wants to be, or that's in
she's
Congress.
in there.
She's in. Okay, so a congresswoman is pretending she's sending a letter from Donald Trump Jr.
Not
Now,
really. It's the fundraising committee for the congressman who's pretending to be. So I mean, at what level does the buck stop, and who really wrote the email? Whoever really wrote the email, we'll never know.
Is Trump Jr. okay with all that?
You would think he'd have to be, because not only does it have his name, it has his picture right there. It's got his face on it.
So
too.
he either needs to put a stop to it. Remember, this is the era of accountability, James. Right
now, you're saying so he's going
to
be
no fake news, baby. We're stopping the thugs from lying. We're getting to the now. Either Donald Trump Jr. is okay with his picture, his likeness being used by this sitting congresswoman and her quote committee with a PAC, or not.
Well, what probably happened?
It needs to stop, and people need to be arrested for what is that when you pretend you're somebody else? What's that called?
Impersonation.
Yeah, whatever.
False impersonation.
If it's okay with him, then he's lying because he didn't write and send me the email at all in which he's begging for money and asking for a survey and so on and so on.
Almost certainly. Now, what I do is I like endorsements. I like so we do a quarterly fundraising appeal for my radio program. That's how we stay on the air. We don't have any institutional support or bequests or grants or anything. So it's just small money donations every quarter, every year for 21 years now, and we get by. But I do like, for our regular guests, people that the audience, carries a lot of weight with so I will include in a letter that I did personally write, sort of like a little sub-paragraph saying, hey, don't forget what this guy said, and it'll be an encouraging little paragraph about why people should donate and, what gift incentive we're giving them. So that's legit. Now, what happened here almost certainly was her campaign committee contacted Trump Jr.'s committee, and they said, do we want to send this out? Oh, yeah, sure, no problem. So that's how it is. He probably doesn't even know about it.
So if that group can do it, is this congresswoman and her committee, are they literally conservative and or are they part of the deep state? They can send out emails under Donald Trump Jr. and it's okay. But what happened if I did that, James?
Yeah, that would be, you'd go to prison.
All right, so the next question
you'd at least
is
get fined.
Donald Trump Jr. says he's waiting to hear from Sam Bushman. Isn't that what he says?
Oh, yeah. Not her campaign committee, because that's in the fine print at the bottom. Donald Trump Jr. himself is waiting to hear back from you, and if you take this survey, he's going to take it to the president, and they're going to consider it, and if you could kick in a few bucks, that'd be great, too. But the bucks you're kicking in goes to a New York congresswoman who has nothing to do with you in Utah. Has nothing to do with...
But I'm sure she's not even a very conservative New York congresswoman either.
I mean, certainly, I guess all things are relative. She might be conservative compared to Chuck Schumer, but certainly not our brand of conservative.
Okay. So I'm getting this email then. It's not really true. It's fake news. It's not Donald. He says he's waiting for me. Now, I've tried to reach out to Donald Trump Jr. since 2016 when he came on the program and said he'd come back, literally on the air, and I can't get a hold of him if my damn life depends on it.
Well, he sent his brother back, I guess. But now the interesting thing about Trump Jr. was that was an interview that they solicited. They asked to come on. That wasn't just like you luckily got through and it by some small miracle it happened. They asked if they could come on the show back then. But nevertheless, I digress.
Anyway, I'm just saying I find that fascinating. So in an era in fake news, they're going to literally tell you that Donald wants to hear from Sam. And, Sam can't get a hold of Donald if he tries. Now, how do I let Donald know how to get a hold of me? Maybe Donald doesn't know how to get a hold of me. Wait a minute. He does. He emailed me, right?
Well, if you donate $2 to Elise Stefanik's re-election campaign,
I don't want to donate to Elise Stefanik. I want to talk to Donald Trump Jr. He's waiting to hear from me.
You know what's crazy about Sam Bushman? Folks, you know what's crazy about this segment right here is that this was not on the agenda at all. Sam literally got that email during the commercial break, and we came out of break, and he's been riffing for 15 minutes. But it ties perfectly to my whole point, though, that we're being punked. And that's the proof right there. If Donald Jr. is trying to get a hold of Sam Bushman and hear from me, he emailed me, so he knows how to get a hold of me, or at least Stefanik, Elise, and the PAC, and whoever. They all know how to get a hold of me. At least probably doesn't even know the email was sent. But here's what's interesting about this is that obviously you're a very savvy news guy, so you knew what this was all about, and we've been talking about it. But a lot of people will get very excited thinking that this is legitimate, and they will donate specifically because they believe that they got an email from Donald Trump Jr., and they will donate because of it.
And even if they don't think it's Donald Jr. himself, but they're like, hey, it's a close staffer that sent it. Whatever else. I remember I used to work with Hope Hicks She was bad news, in my opinion. But, I felt like, hey, that was one of our ties to the Trump campaign. I've interviewed now, for example, Caroline Leavitt, great person, I think. I've interviewed her. She's a nice lady. I think she's killer. Spot on delivery. I mean, she's very, very, very good. But I try to call her. I got her personal number. I never get a call back anymore. So I'm going to call her and I'm going to leave her a voicemail and say, hey, Donald Jr. is trying to get a hold of me. Can you help him connect the dots? Because he seems confused. What do you think, James?
Yeah. I mean, again, as you said, she actually is a great press secretary. I mean, because she doesn't.
But here's my problem with her. So she eats them alive, and that's great. She really does. I mean, she literally schools them over and over. I mean, daily. She's incredible. However, here's my question. If we have control of the narrative, if the new media is as far along as they want you to believe, why would she go on their shows and eat them alive? Why wouldn't she go on our shows, James?
Well, this goes back to what you were saying before. She's going to go back to ratings and numbers and what she believes to be, authentic.
Yeah, but hold on. If we control the narrative, we've got the ratings and the numbers, right?
Well, we are part of a collective that is supplanting the establishment media in terms of
what better way to help us supplant it by giving them the cold shoulder and decreasing their stature and their ratings and giving us okay, I've been at this too. Without it, you're being punked, James.
You've been saying that since 2015, and I agree that they should have routed these people out and brought in their own media, and whether we're part of that company or not, or if it's just, the big boys like, Charlie Kirk and that ilk, they should make everything go through their people, even if it's people that are a lot more moderate than us, like the Daily Wire or whatever. Yeah, you should, and they have to an extent. They've done a few things. Like I think there was one in MSNBC or somebody was kicked out of the Pentagon press room, and there's been some things.
Yeah, and the AP got kicked out. I understand, and that's fine, and that's a start. But again, it's pittance. It's kind of like, hey, Joe Biden brought in 20 million illegals, and Donald's got rid of 50,000 of them.
Yeah,
hey, that's how we're winning. You know what I mean? We're totally winning. It's incredible. We're winning. Okay, we're being punked. We're being lied to. I'll give you another example to make the point. For literally months on end, the Democrats had their committee about J6, and they went on TV and they told you how horrible the J6 people were. They were just liars and cheats and evil and insurrectionists. And Donald led the charge, and boom, 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 boom. Man, they were on it. Well, now that's been defunct, and Joe has, quote, protected those people. Now, Donald says that Joe's protections don't count. They've been voided. Fine. Here's the question then. Pelosi's fixer. So I don't know how many of you people know what a fixer is, because most of us mere mortals don't have fixers. We just live life and take our lumps as they come. If I had a fixer, the Southern Poverty Law Center would be having to deal with some repercussions. But see, I can't afford a fixer. Nevertheless, Nancy Pelosi has a fixer. And her fixer turned out to be at the Capitol on January the 6th. It's being called an unforgivable betrayal. Joseph Hanneman, Steve Baker over at The Blaze, theblaze.com, doing a great job. And this is an example of they're doing original reporting here, James. You got to give them a ton of credit for this.
Yeah, sure.
Turns out that rally organizer, a guy by the name of Dustin Stockton, says Aaron Black, a.k.a. Aaron Minter, M-I-N-T-E-R. So Aaron Minter, known as Aaron Black, Pelosi's fixer, lied about being at the Capitol, and it all relates to rioting and everything else. Well, this Aaron Black literally has been caught engineering and organizing violence. So they've got Ray Epps, who we have on video, literally agitating and creating violence. We've got video proving it. Even the conservatives called him a Fed. It was so bad. No charge, no harm, no foul for Ray Epps. Then you've got Aaron Black now, fixer for Nancy Pelosi. He's been caught agitating violence. Now he's got a role in January the 6th that he lied about. Now, there's a big complicated story over at The Blaze, James. It's so complicated that I can't really even give you all the details of it. You have to just go read it. Because it's complicated. It's super complicated. Right, if you can. It's super, super complicated. But at the end of the day, the takeaway is this Aaron Black guy literally created violence and in court was forced to kind of testify about some of this kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, They're now saying that 50 to 60 intentional organized agitators created violence at the Capitol, and that was all blamed on the conservatives.
Right.
So here's the question. Are we going to start putting that on TV like the Democrats did, telling the real side of the story? And are we going to start throwing people in jail? Or are they going to send me another email going, Sam, we love you and we want to hear from you. Please send us some money.
All right, these are great questions. And to your point, this is the alternative of what we were talking about earlier in the program. This is an independent news agency. Say what you will about Glenn Beck. And there's a lot that can be said, good and bad. But this is an independent news journalistic agency that is getting news that nobody else is covering. I mean, they literally broke this. I haven't seen this anywhere else. And I was trying to read it on their website, but of course, you know, that filthy lucre gets in the way of a lot of things. I scrolled down a few paragraphs and was reading along, and then I got a pop-up, and in order to continue, I had to choose my level of support for the Blaze independent media. And so that ended my reading of it. But the headline is exclusive, and key word there, it was Pelosi's fixer at the Capitol on January 6th. An unforgivable betrayal, says friends.
All right, now let me tell you this part about the story because it's so long, but I want to get this piece out because it's really critical, and I commend the Blaze. Nobody is really supposed to know about me, says Aaron Black. Black appears to have at least one important thing in common with Nancy Pelosi. That is narrative. Pelosi famously has said that the January 6th committee that she appointed in 2022 was all designed to control the narrative. Okay? In an interview with a group of high school students in 2018, Aaron Black emphasized narrative as the key to success. Generally in campaigns and other political work, you can't win elections and you can't win issue campaigns unless you are controlling the narrative on the ground, on social media, and mainstream media, Black said. Yeah, think about that.
He said it.
Think about that. Okay, and so when we talk about the narrative at the start of the show, and we say, yeah, man, the conservatives, we got control of the narrative, they're just rocking. I don't think so. The Democrats literally had control of the whole TV apparatus when they were peddling the lies about January the 6th. They literally peddled their lies into hearings impeaching Donald Trump. No accountability, zero. Now that the shoe's on the other foot, and we know about Aaron the Fixer, Aaron Black, thanks to the Blaze, and we know about Nancy Pelosi, no one's lifting a finger to do anything about it. They're too busy begging Sam Bushman for money, saying they're trying to get a hold of me when I'm trying to get a hold of them. Now, just so you know, my number and my email and everything else is published on the internet. Getting a hold of me would take 5 seconds. Well, they already got a hold of me. So if you're trying to get a hold of me, but you already got a hold of me, how does that work? It doesn't. So you're being lied to at every level, even by the Trump administration, even by the conservative Congress, even by all these people. Why isn't Aaron Black and Ray Epps in chains, James?
Yeah, it would be. This is the thing. Trump can set whatever news he wants by any of these press gaggles that he does multiple times a day. All he has to do is just mention this story from the Blaze, and it's going to be in the news. It's going to have to be in the news. I mean, it's in the news.
But he's not going to mention it, James.
He mentions it. Yeah, so the question is why?
Because he's part of the deep state and he controls the narrative.
I knew that you're going to go there with that, but yeah. Well,
how do you say it's not true? As soon as you start arresting people, as soon as you start impeaching judges like they impeached Donald, as soon as you start really getting accountability, then I'll start to believe it. Until then, you're not going to convince me that we're making a whole lot of headway.
Yeah.
Okay? If Joe Biden imports 20 million illegals and Donald Trump by 2030, gets rid of 1 million illegals, you've got 19 million illegals changing the whole trajectory of Congress. Right? Because they'll be counted in the census. Oh, no, Sam, Trump will make sure they're not counted in the census. Are you sure about that? He'll just get sued and shut down by a judge, and then they'll count him in the census, right?
Yeah, well, that seems to be the way it's going right now.
Until you take action. The Democrats have proved action and narrative is the answer. The narrative is that J6 prisoners were evil and bad, and they arrested over 1,500 of them on false pretenses. They peddled it on TV. They peddled it in the hearings impeaching Donald Trump with absolute flat-out lies. And there's zero accountability thus far.
Pause for dramatic effect. No, I was listening. You'd like to see it. You'd like to see it. That's for sure. I mean, there are good things happening. That's undeniable. Again, the one sentence headline, right wing controls the narrative now. That's not true. But I mean, it is moving in a better direction than it has been historically. Since going back to our early.
Oh yeah, as my buddy Jesse Lee Peterson says, they're going 90 mile an hour north, and now we're going 70 mile an hour north. See, we made a lot of difference there. We're getting it done.
You're going, maybe you're going 20 miles an hour back in the opposite direction, but there have been some good things.
There's been some great things, but will they be enough? Unless Congress acts, and unless we shut down the courts and their belligerence from the bench, and unless we start taking real action and prosecuting people and creating real accountability, unless we punish the mainstream liars in the news like the Associated Press, okay? Hey, the Associated Press might not be in the, quote, press room, but they still get all the news. Every organization feeds their news through the mainstream Associated Press primarily. That's how 90% of the organizations get their news. They subscribe to the Newswire, either Reuters or the AP or a couple of these. There's a few people that's ground zero for all this news. And until we jettison them and create our own narrative and our own stories like the Blaze just did. But what's fascinating to me is no one is talking about this Blaze story but me and the Blaze. This should be top news. Aaron Black, a fixer for Pelosi, literally tied to violence and previous activities, now tied to January 6th and lied about being there, and admits these people are admitting that, hey, there's 50 to 60 criminals that were agitators at January the 6th. Now, I want to see a list of who those people are, and I want prosecutions for those people, James. The Democrats prosecute. We don't.
Yeah, that's right. They absolutely go for the jugular every time. I mean, they did it to Trump himself, and I don't think that was political theater. I think that there was a section of those people that wanted to see him done away with. I do. I think that. But the Republicans have never been that ruthless and cutthroat, and that's why traditionally they've always lost. Now they're riding a crest right now in terms of popular support. I mean, the Democrats have cratered to 27%. It's the lowest on historical record in terms of since
that's what
they've
they say, yeah. But they haven't cratered too much. They helped pass the big old spending bill. They just spent us.
You're going to have their help because they're still half of the Congress. But you're going to have their help.
We have the majority. I don't know if people realize that.
Well, it's like 53%, something like that.
Yeah, we have enough to stop them every time if we stuck together and chose it.
Well,
what we did was we just passed a big omnibus spending bill and didn't change a thing for the next 6 months, right?
So you got 53% in Congress or GOP, or is that the Senate? Anyway,
yeah,
but
it's hard to say. We have the majority in both. We're told.
It can't. I mean, you can lose like one or two. And they typically lose Rand Paul and Tom Massey anyway, so because they're going to be voting on their principles, whether or not it's good or not.
Well, if we stuck with the principles, then they'd be with us, wouldn't they?
I don't know about that. I mean, sometimes they just cut off their nose to spite their face. People like that, but
yeah. So there you have it. Anyway, I just find that interesting. Then I get these information emails directly from Donald Trump, and here's what it says: "Hey Sam, I want to see you at Mar-a-Lago, buddy. It's incredible. I need you at Mar-a-Lago. It's going to be incredible. I'll buy you dinner. I'll fly you out." And then I read a little further, and it goes, if you sign up for this lottery thing, you just might win if you put in a couple of bucks.
Yeah. I wonder if anybody's ever won that. I've actually never seen a story where, one of these people that responded to it, because that would be an interesting story, right? Like, Joe Smith.
Yeah, it doesn't exist, buddy.
Joe the plumber, some just working class guy who sent in a couple of bucks in an email promotion, got to go and meet the president. I've never seen a story where that happened.
That's because it doesn't happen.
I mean, that would be an easy thing to make happen. Just come in for a quick meet and greet and a photo op. But I've never seen a follow-up from any of these emails that are always inviting you to have dinner with the president.
But did Donald really invite me to do that, or is it fake news? And to tell me that that he really needs me there and that I'm going, and then tell me it's nothing but a lottery if you pay some money to join the lottery?
Don't fall for it, Sam.
It's like a Russian roulette thing. And then they tell me they're going to stop fake news and we control the narrative. And I'm going, I've been around a little too long, ladies and gentlemen. I wasn't born yesterday. And I'm telling you right now, we better take back the narrative. And until we do, we're in serious trouble. God save the Republic and save us all.